Okay.
But I don't have any music to play.
Cool. So we're humming music. Hey, there's already people who like it.
People
here.
How are people liking it? We haven't done anything yet. What's up?
How's it going, everybody?
What's happening?
My name's Adam, and I am lucky to be part of Rick's channel, and this is the live stream.
I'm Rick, and I'm lucky to be part of Adam's channel, even though it's on my live stream.
Yeah, we're like doing this like session, I guess. We're hanging out, and I'm gonna film a video with Rick in a second, but this is cool, guys. How's it going?
Aaron is present. There we go.
Oh, cool.
Aaron's moderating it. So I only got here probably about 30 minutes ago or so, and I was sitting at this cafe next door just drinking something, and I walk out, and all of a sudden Adam's crossing the street, and I was like, I know that guy. I mean, it was so...
It's a weird experience, man. Like, we were just saying, like, you know, I'm used to seeing you in a little square, like what we have right here.
Exactly.
And meeting somebody that you... Because there's almost a very personal connection that you have with somebody that you spend so much time with, like, in the box. It seems kind of weird, but that's, like, how we're wired. So when I saw you, I'm like, oh my God, like, I know you, but I don't know you, and it was really weird. It was wild.
So here we are. We are in New York City. I'm here actually for a. You guys can feel free to like the video, and invite your friends too.
Yes.
You can. I think hit a share button or something like that.
There's a share. Yeah,
I think there's a share button. So I'm here because I'm. Doing a series of 3 seminars tomorrow down in Chelsea, not far from here, probably about 5-6 blocks from here or something like that. It's a place called the National Opera House. It's a recital room. I'm doing a 10:30 a.m. You can find this stuff on my website at rickbeato.com. But tomorrow night, so I'm doing a talk on music. Instruction for children, and then that's at 10:30 a.m. Then I'm doing one at 1 on social media, developing your social media platform. But then at night, my friend Iden Essen, who's the greatest improviser that I've ever heard, someone that you have to see, is playing, and I'm going to moderate this. It's going to be like a master class. It's starting at 7:30, and you should be there. There's a few tickets left. And you guys that are living anywhere within a couple hour drive from here should come on down and see it. Okay, so play the lick.
Play the lick. Yeah, when I did a live stream, you know Jeff Schneider at all?
Yeah,
He's a sax player. That was like everything anybody ever wanted in the live stream. It was like, you guys should just keep playing the lick at one another. I'm like, okay, that's funny, I guess, but...
I never knew about the lick until somebody said the lick, and then I went, and then they said, you need to see, you don't know the lick video? And I said, no.
Yeah, when I was in grad school, this was like 6 or 7 years ago by this point. That was like my introduction to a lot of the jazz culture, specifically in New York City. There's a lot of people like sharing this one video, the lick video, and there's several of them now. There's like 3 video compilations of this thing, and me talking about the lick is in one of the lick videos, which I found really funny.
And then you use the lick in your when you do your questions, right? Da 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 da.
Yeah, and you know, this is the funny thing. I have this lick T-shirt because I thought that was funny, and people. It's still enough of an in joke that people see the lick T-shirt and they're like, "Oh, that's your transition music." I'm like, no, I mean it is, but
it is.
So that's kind of fun, but anyway.
Do people realize that that's your transition music?
Yeah, and I'll get comments all the time. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that I never noticed that your transition music was the lick. And it's a fun little thing. But anyway.
But that's your own version of it, though, harmonized, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a fourth. I have these like chordal fourth voicings, and they're like, I forget what the chords are, but it's like 1 flat 7 flat 6 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for some other videos I've included a lick. I do different different harmonizations. Just I don't know why, but that's a thing I do. So
anyway. So we're going to talk a little bit about the state of music education. Adam and I talked for about 30 seconds before we started this about it, but I was telling him I went to a concert this past week. Zakir Hussain, who's a phenomenal tabla player. If you don't know his music, you should really check it out. And he had Dave Holland. It was a co-bill with Dave Holland, I believe, is what they're doing. But they have a fantastic band. They have Chris Potter on saxophone, who,
Yeah, his godfather of modern
he's
sax
unbelievable.
player.
I got to meet his parents, actually. They showed up. I found
cool.
out he's from Columbia, South Carolina, which is
cool.
very weird, of all places to be. It's like 3 hours from Atlanta. So that was surprising that Chris Potter's from the South, even though his mom is from Queens, I think.
Yeah.
But so I was the drummer Gino and Gino Banks and his dad Louie are so 3/4 of the band are Indian, and I went backstage and I had dinner with the guys after, and we were talking about the topic that we talk about things being taken down from YouTube, and it's interesting because they really don't even think about this.
Yeah.
And I talked about certain people that I've interviewed, like Scott Henderson, guitar player. He doesn't let people record him. Mm-hmm. Pat Metheny doesn't let people record him. They just finished the concert. The first thing they did was they announced that nobody's allowed to tape.
Right.
So there's this weird thing about jazz musicians not being allowed to tape. What is the story with that?
Well, I mean, you've mentioned this before. I do think that it is generational, and I do think there's plenty of interviews, and maybe I think I just was watching something that you said. But the idea that Pat Metheny doesn't like it, and you didn't mention Pat Metheny, but I'm talking about Pat Metheny here. He doesn't like it because he likes the ability to take risks, and when you have somebody filming you, you feel like you haven't been able, and you make a mistake, you feel like that's now like in stone. Like this has now been recorded, because that's kind of an old mindset, where you go into the recording studio and you capture something and you make sure that that's the best possible thing. But now, because of the prolific nature of the internet and film and video, when you capture something, yes, it is technically forever, but there's so much else to it. And so it's much more of like, I think of it as a continuum. You want to have a body of work over a long period of time. And even, yes, if one thing is not the best possible thing that it can be, somebody's been exposed to your work and now thinks about your work, and now they might be more interested to check out another thing in your work, etc., etc. And I think a lot of the younger jazz musicians definitely know this and get this, because they're contemporaries in rock and pop and like all of the other styles of music, electronic music especially, are doing the same sort of thing with social media. And there is definitely a generational divide, and it has nothing to do with the quality of music. It's purely because of just the technology, which is unfortunate, but that's just the nature of it.
The thing that you do notice, and I noticed at the show, is that it's just old people. I mean, here's me with white hair. I'm 55, and but it was people that were older than me. And when I saw Pat play, I brought my son Dylan, but there were no kids. And this is in Atlanta. I mean, if Pat plays Boston, there's going to be Berkeley. There's going to be tons of kids there. Yeah. But in Atlanta, these shows, it's all old people. I'm talking people in their 60s and 70s even. And they were playing, Zakir's the music they were playing was compositions by different band members, and had incredible energy. Yeah. But I don't want to say it was wasted on
the audience there. Right. Who's like,
I was so psyched. It was so, all these polyrhythms going on. It was just so rhythmic. It was incredible, and people were just kind of sitting there, not doing anything. I was like,
well, I think it's also, the audience is very important for whenever you play music. It's important to have the right audience, and even if it's an older audience, that it can still be great. The energy can be great and everything. But I think that idea of it being wasted on something is a new thing, I guess, in music, because like you want to document it. You want to document this really awesome experience, even if it's not the highest experience. Even if you know it could be better, you want to at least capture it and make sure that everybody else knows about it. Because I guarantee you, none of you guys have been checking out this Zakir Hussain recording that Rick Beato was talking about, because it doesn't exist and will never exist.
Right.
The studio recording, but not this particular live performance.
Even though I did tape some during sound check.
There we go.
They don't know that, but
yeah. Don't tell
anyone. And I'll be putting that out next week.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
But when you say generational, what do you think age-wise is the generational? Chris Potter's 46.
Yeah.
I asked him. He's 46. And it seems to extend to him. These other people, Pat Pat Metheny and Scott Henderson, they're both 63. So it's definitely that generation that they don't feel like that. But I'll say this too. One of the reasons that Pat left ECM originally, there were two reasons. And he talked about this. One of the reasons was that he was getting a lower royalty rate than he could when he went to Geffen, is where he went in 85. But the other reason was that ECM had this policy that you had 2 days to make a record.
Oh, okay.
And Pat wanted to spend more time on his records. Yeah. Personally, I thought that his records, I didn't like them as well when he spent more time on them. And that starts with Still Life Talking, and it goes on. I mean, I'll say that on here, and I'm a massive Pat fan. But all the records up through First Circle were on ECM, and I think it's a great policy, actually.
Interesting, I mean, yeah. That's actually, I would even though it's not exactly this, I would consider that almost a fairly contemporary, like modern idea of like you have an X amount of time, you do it, get it out, and then that's what we do. I mean, I know it might have been for like monetary reasons, they can't afford as much time in the studio, but also for artistic reasons, it can be great to have that pressure cooker of like, it has to be done now, you're going to do it, and this is going to be a moment in time.
This is interesting as I thought about this. One of the things about that time period is that when, for example, when he made Bright Size Life, they did, I remember Bob Moses was teaching NEC when I was there, and I asked Bob about it, who plays drums on the record, and he told me they did a 5-week tour before they did the record.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you're going to be playing new material, that stuff would end up all over YouTube. That is the downside there.
Yeah, that's true.
But there is this is a really important thing, and this goes for jazz and classical musicians. There are many people that have had a second life because of YouTube. And I'll tell you some jazz musicians. Oscar Peterson, some of his best work, there's a tune called Blues Etude that is with him and Nelson Orsted Pedersen and Barney Kessel. That is one of the greatest recordings ever. It's from Ronnie Scott's 1974, right at the peak of his career, when he was doing a lot of those records with strings and things like that, that were beautiful. Klaus Overman was doing arrangements and things, but he wasn't playing this kind of stuff. He was playing straight ahead. And to me, all these Oscar things that are available on YouTube, it gives you much more insight into his playing. And on the classical music scene, there's Martha Argerich, who's one of my favorite classical pianists. She's had another resurgence, I think, because of YouTube. There's so many great concerts of her playing her concertos, and I think YouTube is incredible for that. Just any type of video recordings like that.
Yeah, there's this, I forget the name of it, it's a bootleg channel. It's a jazz bootleg channel, and I was, well, how many of them are there?
I don't know about this.
And I didn't know about this either, and this actually might be, I'm going to see if I can get this up. Well, no, the reason why I bring this up is because I occasionally will sub in for a class at NYU, their jazz department there, because a buddy of mine teaches a class there. And they hit me to this. Let me, bootleg jazz. Let's type this in. So maybe somebody will be able to tell what this channel is. Bernie's Bootlegs and More. And there's all of these like videos and bootlegs of like jazz recordings on here, and this channel has been like for younger people, for people like 18, like young musicians, this channel has been kind of like a great window for them. And like they've told me like this channel got them into all these crazy like older things and these like more rare.
Is the guy, is he posting his own bootlegs, or do other people post bootlegs on there?
He's posting his own bootlegs, and there's tons of these things, like 7 times Kenny Garrett went beast mode. But there's like really long videos of all these like longer jazz clips, and this channel keeps getting dinged for copyright infringement. Of course. But it has done a lot to inspire so many younger musicians to go into jazz and to like learn more about jazz musicians that way. And I think that's the utility of YouTube, because maybe a young jazz musician will never have heard of Kenny Garrett or anybody else like that. Now the question, of course, for the people that are getting bootlegged, for the artists and the jazz musicians, is like, are their sales going up? Are their sales going down because of YouTube? Like, is there a strict, like, are they against it because of a philosophical reason, or because of a purely monetary one, or they don't understand it? Or
to me, I think that the guys, Pat Metheny, for example, because he's one of the few people that have had gold records as a jazz musician. And there was a lot of money in that for him at the time, where there's really no money in it for jazz musicians now. A jazz record, if you're lucky, will sell 30,000 copies. These are with the biggest name artists, you know? Yeah. So that's not putting any money in their pocket. So really, YouTube is promotion for them, and they need to see it as that. And frankly, if these guys were showing what the live gig experience was like, I think that younger people would come out and see him. I don't know. What do you're younger than me.
I mean, and it's interesting because I'm now getting to the point where there is a generation before me now. Like there's this, they were the ones that hit me to this. And yes, I definitely think that would be the case. I mean, I think Snarky Puppy is kind of like the case study of like a young jazz collective getting big because of their savvy with YouTube and visual media. Yeah. But, Snarky Puppy's great, but they're not the greatest. Like, there's so many other bands and artists and collectives that would be able to do that. It's just that they were able to capitalize on the YouTube market. They were able to capitalize on the visual media and pairing that with recordings, or like they're playing recordings. I think there is a huge, like, open Wild West in a way that is left to be tapped in this whole thing. And I think, the sooner people realize that this is left to be tapped, the better they'll be able to adapt to this new paradigm, because it's only going to get, quote, worse or, quote, better from here.
When it comes down to who's actually taking these videos off, it's actually the labels that are doing it. Yeah. I mean, there's no question about that. Now, do the artists have any say in that, really? Probably not. Yeah. Manfred Eicher, that owns ECM Records, he owns the copyright to the actual sound recordings, but does UMG actually own that? That's they own the label, so they must own the copyrights. If they own the label, they must have bought out the label, just like they bought out Blue Note, and they own all the copyrights on them of the sound recordings, because that's what they're complaining about. But why take down the bootlegs? Right. I've got some great bootlegs, by the way, that I've never put up. Should I put them up?
You should. Ones
that I've actually recorded. I actually have Pat Metheny, Charlie Hayden, and Billy Higgins at the Village Vanguard, 1983 or 84, playing on the Rejoicing tour, and it was. And I was sitting about 5 feet from the bandstand, and I have a recording of the whole gig, and it's unbelievable. It's some of Pat's best playing ever. It's right at to me, pinnacle of his career his playing, and I've got the bootleg.
You should. I mean, then maybe you'll get Pat Metheny will get in contact with you and be very upset with that.
They don't own that.
Yeah. Right? Well, yeah, and that's an interesting thing.
This is weird. I had a Walkman on the table. He was sitting that far away from me, or he's playing that far away. He could see it on the table, and he didn't say anything.
There we go. I mean, it's such a weird thing, because, like, to me, I would clearly post it, and I'm so used to it. Also, this is the thing that every show I go to in New York or wherever I'm going to, I'm always posting Instagram stories of whatever that is. So little snapshots of whatever the person on stage is playing, and I'll tag them and say, like, this guy is fucking killing right now. It's like, I love his playing and everything like that. That is essentially the same thing, and that's kind of like standard practice, at least for anybody going to shows, or at least for me going to shows. What is the difference between that and then posting a bootleg from 30 years ago, 25 years ago? Wow. Same thing, same principle, but I feel like it's a generational, like, I feel like people would be against it, maybe.
And it's interesting, because generationally, who was the biggest people that did this in the past? The Grateful Dead, Fish? Yeah, people did this 2 generations ago.
This was like, it's nothing
standard
new.
Protocol.
This is nothing news under the sun. It's just the technology is now there, so that's like eminently, like, you can have it now, versus bootlegging for like Fish and Grateful Dead started it. Like, was a much more underground sort of thing, people like exchanging tapes and things like that, but now there's the technology to have it like now, which I'm not sure if that does anything for the calculus for people thinking that it's okay, but
I think that the guys, they don't want to play a gig and then see their stuff on YouTube the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
I mean, I get that, but there needs to be a happy medium, because jazz will those generations of people will eventually go by the wayside. I
Yeah.
think that they will. Even Coltrane, even people that are the giants, Coltrane, Miles, Charlie Parker.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about them. I have my own thoughts about them versus I think that, and this is something like almost a tangent, I think jazz academia, in terms of the way that so many jazz musicians are learning about jazz, you have Miles, Coltrane, Charlie Parker, they're lionized in that curriculum in a way that's not the same for somebody like Zakir Hussain,
right.
Or Chris Potter, although Chris Potter, I don't know, maybe. They're like, you have these figures which have been enshrined in curriculums, but if you haven't been enshrined in a curriculum yet, and you are not embracing the new media paradigm, like you're in this weird in between. So maybe they won't ever have that notoriety, which I feel really sad, obviously. But it's Anyway, that's my thought on it. It's like the jazz academia definitely makes it a point to say these are the people that you should study and know and remember, and it's great. You definitely should, but there's also this realm between 1970 and 2000 which you should definitely study equally as well, but it's not quite as enshrined in the academic process, I think. So anyway,
I since I started in academia in the 80s, 87, I started my college teaching, really 86, my college teaching career.
Ithaca.
Yeah. So I did. I actually started the semester before in '86. My teacher was Mick Goodrick, and Mick got a gig playing with Jack DeJohnette.
Awesome.
And I was the grad assistant of the guitar program, so I took over teaching all the guitar majors. And then I got a job teaching in Ithaca, where I'd done my undergrad. And when I went back there, this is a time when people didn't read tablature on guitar. I was teaching guitar at the time, and so there were you still had mimeograph machines. That is before your time. Mimeograph are the blue dittos that you get, and the resources. My Steve Brown, who ran the jazz department, who was my teacher when I was an undergrad, he's a great guitar player. Steve had these lick sheets that he would teach off of, and this is kind of how jazz was taught then. It was taught about avoid notes.
Okay, yeah.
And you play da 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 da. I mean, these ridiculous songs. Okay. So my theory was first of all, I never believed in avoid notes. It's don't teach about avoid notes. Teach people how to use those notes, because those avoid notes, they'd say, don't play the sixth on a minor 7 chord. It's well, the sixth is one of the best notes you can play.
Right.
But the theory is don't give away the third of the next chord of the dominant and everything. Well, if you do, then you play altered, make it altered, and then you retain that tension level through the transition. But that whole style of jazz academia really started in the 70s when then at Berkeley and continued on, and these. To me, it's just kind of got stuck in a rut that there's there's these certain people that have been lionized, like you said, and I don't see, I don't know, are kids really into Miles anymore? Are they into Coltrane? I don't know. Are they?
I feel like it's hard to say. From where I can say people aren't. People, I feel like, do you know the Irish bass player Ronan Guilfoyle by any chance?
Yeah.
I love his blog, and I've been reading his blog for the past 7 years. And there was a post he was saying that today people are most influenced by their contemporaries in terms of musicians. They're most influenced by other musicians of their same generation, which has not always been the case. It's much more been in the past. It has been more in the past. There's a mentor and mentee sort of relationship. The older generation teaches the younger generation. But it's not exactly that anymore for whatever reason. And so Miles and Coltrane are studied and deeply respected, but I don't see too many people going and really checking out and really getting into Coltrane the same way, except as maybe part of a curriculum, maybe part of a semester in jazz school.
It may be because there are so many generations of jazz musicians nowadays that it's not as easy to do that you've got so many people you can study. when I was going to school, if you were a guitar player, you start out with Charlie Christian, Django Reinhardt, then you move on to Wes Montgomery and Joe Pass and Charlie and Herb Ellis and all these, George Benson, Kenny Burrell, all these people. Then you moved on to the guys, Pat Metheny, John Scofield, John Abercrombie, and Pat Martino, and then you moved on to yourself, and then you developed your own thing.
Yeah.
And there were still a number of generations. Pat Metheny studied Wes and Charlie Christian, but he studied horn players, But you would go through these different things. You probably did the same thing, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, for me and for bass playing, it was Jaco and Victor Wooten to begin with, and beyond there, I mean, I did actually get into Jeff Berlin for a while. I got into. There's so many like the contemporary musicians like Matt Garrison I was really into, and Gary Willis, and Yannick Wazdala, who has an awesome YouTube channel. He's very influential for me. Tony Gray, so some of the more modern players. There was like kind of a trend, like kind of a, I mean, bass is a newer instrument. Electric bass is a newer instrument. And I took the most from electric bass players. So there is kind of a trajectory for them, and I think everything leads back to Jaco at some point, especially, I mean, for jazz bass players, but like...
Even Victor Wooten told me that.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
I asked him if he ever saw Jaco. He said he never saw Jaco. Victor Wooten's younger than me. He's 52. And he asked me if I saw him. I said, yeah, I saw Weather Report play at the Eastman Theater in Rochester in 1978, I think it was. So I got to see Jaco play. I saw Jaco play a couple times. Awesome. But he was, by the time the mid 80s came around, he was pretty much, living on the streets.
Yeah.
And
I know he had so much. It was sad whenever the mental illness takes you out of your element and takes you out of being able to create on a high level with people. And Jaco is almost the. I could talk a lot about Jaco, but I just... Wait,
what did you think of the documentary?
I haven't seen it yet, actually.
Okay.
The Rob Trujillo documentary. Yeah. What do you think about the documentary?
Okay, so I've talked about it, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the channel, but it's very well done. They interview all the right people, but there's one person that they did not interview, and it's Pat Metheny.
Oh.
Now, Pat Metheny is extremely important to the Jaco story, because without Bright Side's Life, that's the reason that people know him.
Right.
That led to Joni Mitchell. I mean, Joni Mitchell knew of Jaco, but really, when Shadows and Light came out, her record, Joni Mitchell live record that you guys should know, Michael Brecker, Lyle Mays, Jaco, Pat Metheny, Don Elias. I mean,
it's all on YouTube. It's
it's unbelievable.
It's really fundamental for like my understanding of like what bass could do, and then also what like a song could be within the jazz context. It didn't have to be like head blowing head. Like you could see how Joni Mitchell actually adopted all the musical abilities of jazz musicians and like molded it into this really amazing. That's so good. Anyway. So
the omission of Pat, for whatever reason, he did not want to be involved. And
interesting.
Or I have to think that, because obviously they reached out to him. I mean, there was not one mention of Bright Side's Life or Pat Metheny.
That is weird.
That is very weird, and that is a striking omission. And
wow.
I don't know why Pat would not want to be involved with that. I just don't. I don't get it. Hey, Pat, if you're watching this, what's the deal? I hope you're watching this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna take some questions from people here. Jaco was made of stardust. Okay,
that's very poetic.
I agree with that.
Hey Adam.
What's up, Jack?
Question: what comes first to you, melody or harmony or something else?
Something else. Inspiration. How's that?
That's a good.
Wait, was that Pat Metheny there? Hi, I'm Pat Metheny. I'm watching.
Hey Pat, what's up? Catch the name of the jazz bootleg site. That's God, I've already forgotten it. It's like Bernie's Bootlegs and more. Is there something you two strongly disagree about? I don't know. We actually haven't talked enough about any one subject to really strongly disagree about it yet. I don't know.
No. I don't know.
I don't know. We shouldn't. I don't know. We'll figure that out. What's that on your hand, Adam? Oh, I saw a show last night and I haven't got a chance to shower yet, so I gotta.
Selling those Lick Music T-shirts.
Yes, teespring.com. Just search Teespring, Adam Neely.
Wait a minute, it's time for some 432 trolling. No way. We're not going to take that bait.
We Are Stardust. Functional harmony or non-functional, whatever's most applicable.
Whatever.
Oh, New Complexity. Are you hip to Ben Johnston at all, the string quartet guy, microtonalist?
I've heard of him. I don't. I'm not familiar with him though.
This is something I've been getting into recently, which is why I'm asking. It's he really interesting stuff. He's really into just intonation, like in string quartets. And I was reading a blog post at one point about the most the hardest piece of music ever written, because it's impossible to play as in tune as he needs the string section to play in tune. But it's like his third string quartet, the most impossible piece of music ever to play. So I might make a video on that. But anyway, that he's part of this new complexity movement of like Brian Ferneyhoff, all these contemporary classical guys who are just writing music that's like, math equations on a page. Anyway, so that's my take on new complexity.
Do you have any favorite?
Jeez, yeah.
This is why I can't even read it.
This is why I can't do any of it. Okay. Is Kanye West the new Coltrane? No.
No.
Good ways to... you would answer this. Good ways to use harmonic major. I know you did a video on that.
Watch my video.
Yeah, there we go. There. You guys like Fred Hirsch? I don't know Fred Hirsch all that well.
I know Fred. Yeah. He was teaching NEC. He's a great piano player. He was teaching NEC back then. I think he must still be living in New York though, right?
I honestly don't know Fred Hirsch that well.
Yeah, Fred's... he's probably about... He must be he's at least 10, 15 years older than me, so... in Adam's video,
it's not made yet.
It's not made yet.
But we're going to do a talk after this.
We're going to make the video here in a few minutes,
and then I'm going to upload it later. It's going to be basically the same thing. It's just kind of cut a little bit.
Okay, so there's 331 likes on this video, but there's about 900 people watching. What is the deal with? What's the problem with you? You guys don't like us or what?
Oh God, there's too many.
Would it be
make an album together at some point, maybe. Have you heard Dave Zeno play? I don't know who Dave Zeno is, actually.
We talked about Snarky Puppy. Fourths tuning on guitar. Stanley Jordan. He uses fourths tuning.
He does?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that makes sense, because, the tapping thing,
Mr. Finish Line? What is that? Mr. Finish Line. What is that?
Just Mr. Finish Line.
Mr. Finish
That's
Line.
the super chat, okay.
Mr. Finish Line. Jacob Collier as a guest, please. I reached out to Jacob. I sent him an email and I've heard back from him. But I don't talk about negative harmony. Only positive harmony.
Only positive, it's
too much negative stuff out there.
Yeah, it was really bumming down the music community when that negative harmony thing was happening. It was okay.
I'm gonna plug my gig tomorrow night. Come to see Aiden Essen. And you can meet me, and you can meet Adam too.
I'm going to the gig tomorrow.
Really 7:30 tomorrow night. I'm going to talk, and Aiden is going to play. And you've never seen anything like Aiden. I promise you. He's a once in a lifetime musician.
I'm really excited. I can play giant steps and negative harmony in all 12 keys. Yeah, this is why. I can't do it.
I give up.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to answer one or two maybe. Okay. Rick, will you shred for us?
I don't have anything to shred on. I can shred some paper.
Yeah, I
don't even have any paper.
Sounding off with John McLaughlin.
Ooh, so I'm going to see John McLaughlin, and I'm going to see John McLaughlin in 2 weeks in Atlanta. So he's playing with Jimmy Herring. Thank you. No, nobody said.
Nobody said. He's just thank you for that.
He's playing with Jimmy Herring, who's a great guitar player, and it's John's last tour.
Oh wow!
And Gary Husband's playing with him, and I'm gonna go see the show. I think it's on the 22nd. So, if I get lucky, I will get to interview John McLaughlin and both of them actually.
Yeah.
And I have a video where I interviewed Gary Husband, who's a great drummer and keyboardist. Played with Alan Holdsworth, played with Mahavishnu for years. You should check it out. It's a really he's a wonderful guy, and he has a lot of great insights into all different kinds of music.
I did I'm sure some people here.
Beato favorite bass players besides Adam. I like the same bass players Adam likes. I like I like upright players too that we didn't talk about. I I like Ray Brown and Ron Carter. I was talking about Ron Carter all day yesterday. I like Nels Henning, Orsted Pedersen. I love,
Do you know Renaud Garcia Fons? He's not so much a strictly bass, like jazz bass player, but he plays like 5-string arco acoustic bass, and he does all this like flamenco stuff. I've been getting really into him recently, and it's like, if you think you know what the upright bass can do, check out Renaud Garcia Fons, because it's like the most crazy shredding I've ever seen. Anyway.
Someone was asking me, how does Ron Carter, my friend Denise was asking me the other night, he said, how does Ron Carter get that sound? Why is it that every famous bass player is 6'5" or so?
Yeah.
No, seriously, all you bass players are tall. So Dave Holland, he's about 6'5". Miroslav Vitus is 6'7". Yeah. Nelson Orsted Pedersen was 6'8". Ron Carter's about 6'7".
I mean, it's all for like upright bass. I mean, like it's.
I don't know how tall Jaco was, but.
Well, he was definitely, I feel like, taller. Well, he was lanky, I know that.
Yeah.
A lot of bass players have something called hitchhiker thumb, which is when the thumb bends back. It's like a genetic thing, and I don't have that. I know Victor Wooten has it, and he
does.
Well, it helps for his whole thumping thing, and there are few bass players, famous bass players that I've seen that don't have hitchhiker's thumb, which is interesting, because if you look at the back of like whenever they're playing on upright bass, there's a little bit of a bend on every one of the thumbs, and I don't have it, so I guess I'll never be a famous bass player.
Victor was telling me that he has this thing called focal dystonia.
Oh,
he's had it for years.
Okay,
and,
that's interesting. Yeah,
and he says that when he was telling me this, that his third finger, depending on how his hand is angled, doesn't. It's like a trigger finger kind of thing. He can't feel it, but if he puts something in his hand and plays, it changes it.
There's Scott Devine of Scott's Bass Lessons has that, and I actually just had a lesson with somebody who had that focal dystonia, and I was researching this, and it's like a very little known thing. From repetitive, people get it from repetitive use. A lot of piano players will get it, and they can't tell the difference between certain digits. That's the and it's like it's a neurological thing. Like the brain, it overmaps. Like so, because you've been playing so much and so regularly, the brain starts making more and more connections between your brain and your fingers or wherever. And sometimes it like just makes too many connections. So when you go to move one finger, it moves the other finger. At least that's what I understand.
Have you done a video on this?
No, I haven't, because I don't know enough about it.
That sounds like an interesting topic. And Scott wears that glove because of that? Is that why?
And I've heard a lot, and he said that worked for him, and like because you're feeling something else touching your hand, and when you were playing and making all these connections, your hand wasn't feeling that. That makes it easier to play. So in other words, like
it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's there's not a lot of medical research on it, which is part of the reason why I don't want to like make a video on it, because whenever I do a video, I want to make sure that like my information is as correct as I can make it. But
see, I don't feel that. Opinions on electric jazz, like
Miliana
and Donnie McCaslin. I love Donnie's playing. So my Donnie, let me talk about Donnie. First, I'm going to tell this story tomorrow night. Actually, I'm going to talk about Iden. The first day in Boston in 1984, when I went to grad school, I took the train from Waltham into Boston. I got off at the T-stop right next to Berkeley. I started walking towards Berkeley. It was only the old building and the one on Boylston. And across the street was where there's a Starbucks now, but there was a place called Cafe Bouquet. And there was a band playing. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I walk over, there's all these Berkeley people there, and Donnie McCaslin was the sax player. And he was a student at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and then there's this guy with a huge hair, and it was Iden. I didn't know it was Iden. And I couldn't believe how these guys were playing. And when Iden took a solo, I've never heard anything like that. So, but Donnie was playing. Literally the first musician I heard in Boston was him. Are you familiar with his playing? He's a phenomenal
singer. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, because his group played on David Bowie's last album, and I mean, honestly, here in New York, the 4 bands: Nerve, JoJo Mayer's Nerve, Donnie McCaslin,
love JoJo,
and Miliana, and like all these offshoots. That's kind of like what everybody is really trying to do, at least in for like young students. They love this electronic jazz, so melding electronic sounds, but with the sensibility and the improvisational ideas of jazz. And Jojo Mayer, out of everybody, is probably the one.
Okay, Jojo Mayer, I have his 3-hour DVD, and I played it for my son Dylan every day when he was a baby.
Yeah.
I loved it. He loved it.
Yeah.
It was when he would play along with those grooves. Do you know the DVD? It's amazing. It's so.
Is it an instructional DVD?
Yeah, it's instructional DVD.
Yeah.
And he's got things where he's
Weapon or whatever.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
So it came out 10 years ago or so. I mean,
yeah,
10 years ago.
And
it's really good.
And when I was at Berkeley, I remember like some of the drummers got it and like, dude, check this out, and it's like. This whole thing, reconstructing electronic music with live, like being able to do it. And, that is kind of like, I think the exciting thing for a lot of jazz musicians now is to take the new sounds that have been developed because of technology and because of the ability to manipulate sounds on this other level, but then bring it back to all of the vocabulary that has been developed for a century. And at the same time, this idea is nothing new because this was happening in the 70s with the rise of synthesizers, and the 80s too. It's now been like slightly updated. But Donnie McCaslin Group. Tim LaFave is a huge influence on me, by the way. His bass playing is fucking great. So.
Merging of electronic music, right? Okay.
The right way to make. I mean, it's just what's happening. It's not the right way or the wrong way. It's
Marty Friedman. I have the Marty Friedman video that I'm going to put up at the end of the week. So I've already done it. Jojo Mayer and John Mayer are not the same people.
Somebody mentioned EST, Esbjorn Svensson Group, which. Another group that like really influenced me, like the Swedish jazz group Esbjorn Svensson, and it's not really electronic jazz because it's a piano trio, but it's just the way that they play is very electronic, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so we got a couple more questions, then we're gonna get to Adam's video here. Anything? You guys can leave comments afterwards. We'll try and answer them.
Yeah.
Where's all the likes on this? I mean, this is pretty weak.
I apologize.
I apologize for my for my viewers here, Adam. It's on my channel. It's kind of embarrassing. Sorry, dude.
How dare you?
Now, if this was Adam's channel, there would be 1,000 likes right now.
Well, one of the things is this. You have 884 viewers. Like whenever I do you do live streams fairly often, so they're like a thing. Whenever I do live streams, it's like random in the middle of the night. So my viewer. You
do them when actually I'm up doing stuff, and Adam's on. It's 11:30 at night. I'm making a video or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is probably the most number of viewers, which is cool. 878. That's great.
Rick Beato's opinion on 432. I'm not talking about that.
You already made a video.
I already made a video. We both made videos.
Let's move on from there.
Favorite current rock bands? Ted Green. Ted Green's my favorite current rock band. Any of you guys know Ted Green? Okay, so I think we're good. Good. Leave your questions for us here after. We'll try and get to them, or I'll try and get to them, and we'll take it from there. 433, 432, 444, 439. We're good with all of them, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into the comment section.
Yeah.
Start trolling people.
There you go.
In your comment section.
All right, thank you so much, Adam. Thank you.
Yeah, man. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah,
excellent.
Cool.
So stay tuned for Adam's video coming up.
Coming up later when I finish editing it. So.
All right, see you guys.
Bass.